Hey everyone, welcome to boot camp. I have to tell you, there are very few things that feel as good as standing here, looking at all of you, and feeling the energy of the first day of boot camp. It's just so good. Every year, it's so good. I hope you're all feeling as good as I am. And I actually want to start today with a story. So my story is about the first time that I saw Joffrey Ballet, which was in June of this year. And the story is also about the first time that my husband, Neil, saw a ballet ever. I know, took us a while, but it's true. And that ballet was Anna Karenina. Just picture it. So we were invited by an industry friend who just moved into the development department at the Music Center in Los Angeles. And especially for Neil's first introduction to ballet, it felt so special for him to be introduced to the space by somebody who is so knowledgeable and so passionate about the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion and its history in LA arts and culture. We then were invited for a drink at the Founders Lounge during intermission, which is such a gorgeous space, but again, it just felt like such a special way to welcome Neil to the ballet world and for him to really experience being at the ballet in that way. It was special for me, but it was also just really special that that was his first time and he was introduced in that way. So I spent half the ballet watching Joffrey Ballet, and then I spent the other half of the ballet watching Neil because I wanted to see if he was having a good time. And I just remember seeing his engaged stares, and I remember seeing his quiet gasps of awe during the moments of climax, like this iconic train scene. And to be honest, it felt so good to know that we were both enjoying our time there. Because normally when we go and experience performing arts together, you can imagine I'm enjoying myself a little bit more. Sometimes it's just a little bit more, sometimes it's way more. But this time it felt so good because I knew that we were both genuinely enjoying ourselves. And I remember as we were walking back to our car at the end of the night, Neil turned to me and he said, "How have we never done that before? Like, we have to do that again." That was one of my proudest moments. Because just like that, my sports-loving husband, who had seen very little performing arts before he met me, now went from being a first-time attendee of the ballet to wanting to come back, to being a return audience member. Now, let's be clear, Neil does express this sometimes after we see the performing arts. For example, he did it after Hamilton, which I think is a little bit more to be expected. But for him to do it after seeing Anna Karenina, I felt like I was looking at a stranger, first of all. But I just felt so proud. I felt so proud to be looking at that stranger of mine. I tell this story because I know that we all want to create more stories like this with our audiences. So this year, I went to HubSpot's annual marketing and sales conference. It's called Inbound. We've been going for years. It is a great source of inspiration for me every fall. And I was introduced to this thing called the Bowtie Model for compound growth while I was there. Can I see a quick raise of hands if you've heard of this model before? Okay, I see a few. Well, I've quickly become obsessed with it, so all of you will be able to say you've heard of it 20 minutes from now. And the reason why I'm obsessed with it is because I see so much application for exactly what I just described in the audience journey, but also exactly what we're all trying to do, not only acquire new audiences, but to retain them and to grow our audiences over time. So today, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the application of that model. But before I do that, I want to just share a little bit of data to set the scene of arts and culture audiences today. So I'm going to share some 2022 NEA data, a couple years old, but gives us a sense of kind of where audiences are. None of this is new information. We live and breathe it every day, but for the sake of it, just under half, 48% of adults in the US attended at least one arts event in that year. And then more than half, 52% of adults reported either personally creating or performing in any type of art over the year. So to me, these numbers show some potential. We have half the population interested in engaging with the arts, which is awesome. But we also know that more than 50% of all ticket buyers are first-time bookers. And we know that 90% of first-time orchestra attendees in particular never return. Now, this stat is about orchestra attendees, but I know that these numbers are higher than we want them to be across all verticals in arts and culture. We also know that only 50% of first-year season ticket holders renew. However, when you get to the second year of renewal, that number jumps up to 70%. So if we can get our audiences to renew once and get them to their second renewal, the chances significantly improve in terms of them renewing again. Now, again, none of this is new information. We live and we breathe it every day, but I do think it shows the opportunity for us to build on how we are retaining audiences over time. So this morning, I'm really excited to talk to you all about the Bowtie Model because it's really helped me rethink audience development in a way that looks beyond acquisition and really focuses on this idea of long-term growth and, more importantly, long-term impact. So here we can see the shape of the bow tie, and it's broken into 3 parts. The first is the opening, which represents audience acquisition. We have the knot, that represents the moment of conversion or the moment of engagement. And then we have the tail, which represents retention and advocacy. And to me, this is the magic of the model because this is where compound growth happens. Like I said, the name of the model is Bowtie Model for Compound Growth, and it's in the tail that compound growth is happening. And it's that compound growth or recurring impact that I think is deeply relevant and necessary for arts and culture today. Because what we know is that audiences are buying their why. I think it's really easy as marketers to think that they're buying our why for our organization, but in reality, they're buying their why. So let me demonstrate what I mean by that by talking about Neil again, and let's talk about Neil's decision to want to return. So, with the Joffrey Ballet's why, or their mission, is to promote dance through an unwavering commitment to high-quality performances, education, and innovation. This is a meaningful mission, but it is not why Neil wants to come back. So, okay, maybe it's not about the Joffrey Ballet, maybe it's about the Music Center. So let's look at the Music Center's mission. This one's a little bit longer. Music Center's mission to champion the arts in Los Angeles for all people, to connect people with one another and with art that can enrich their lives, to embrace patrons, visitors, community members from all backgrounds, to provide exceptional service to our resident companies and to all who present or experience the arts at the Music Center, and to faithfully steward the campus entrusted to us by the County of Los Angeles. That's a lot of responsibility. And some of these things actually do get closer to why Neil wants to come back, specifically that piece about connecting people with art that can enrich their lives. But let's be clear, Neil wants to come back because of his why. His why is a wife deeply embedded in arts and culture, an opportunity to connect with said wife in an environment that she is so passionate about, an education about the thing that his wife is so passionate about, and yes, also to become more cultured generally as a human being. And that's the piece that's the closest to the Music Center's why. But Neil's why is hyper-specific to him, and it's his truth. And what it means is that if those things can be achieved, that is the impact that is gonna bring him back. If we can find ways to center our audience's why and their most important impact in arts and culture, they will not be able to help themselves. They will have to come back because they actually will get the impact that they're seeking. We all face unique challenges in arts and culture audiences, audience loyalty, evolving audience expectations, this idea of balancing mission with growth, and those things are all really hard. And my hope is that by connecting to our audience's why, we can help overcome some of these challenges. And the Bowtie Model specifically addresses ways to deal with these challenges by looking at the comprehensive audience journey and focusing on the importance of impact. So let's start with the opening of the bow tie. So the opening of the bow tie is essentially the marketing funnel turned on its side. And we start with acquisition. So acquisition is and has always been one of our greatest challenges. It is so hard today to get people off their couch and out of their homes for the sake of entertainment. There are so many ways to spend your time and your money. Competition is fiercer than it's ever been. All of those things are true. And we also know that acquisition is a key component to growth and sustainability inside of arts organizations. So these two things are true at once. We have to be able to reach audiences as behaviors evolve, as technology evolves. So we know we have to cast a wide net. That's the awareness piece. And from there, we have to pique the interest of our audiences, and ultimately we get to this place of targeting and messaging with precision. That's the education piece. Now, in this education piece is where the importance of hospitality starts to come in. I think it's easy to believe hospitality is just about what happens when people walk through our doors, but that's not true, because we can start to be hospitable super early in the audience journey. At CI, we have spent a lot of time this year talking about hospitality. I think my team is sick and tired of hearing the word hospitality at this point. It's a big focus of our conference, which you'll see over the next couple of days. But hospitality really is about being customer obsessed. And you don't have to wait for your audience to walk through the door to be obsessed with them. You can start to be obsessed with them much earlier in the audience journey. So that happens in the education piece. So this education, the targeting, the messaging, the beginnings of hospitality, all of those things lead to the decision phase. This is where audiences transact. Now, unlike the marketing funnel, this is no longer the bottom of the funnel where they fall out and we move on to the next audience member. First, they still have to actually visit our organization. And then our job continues beyond that. And of course, if somebody buys in person, that decision and the next piece of the bow tie happens simultaneously. And that next piece is the conversion or the engagement. Now, what's getting our audiences to the door in the first place is curiosity. They're curious, they're interested to know more. Once they get to our doors, we have the opportunity and we have the responsibility to turn that curiosity into commitment. In the moment of visit, our responsibility becomes creating meaningful moments for our audiences that tangibly help them feel the impact of the arts on our lives, because that's what's going to get them to come back. What makes them feel like they belong? What makes them feel the impact of being part of our community? And what gives them a sense of human connection? How are we taking every opportunity we possibly can to give them a sense of human connection? Especially in this visit stage, every touch point matters, and this is where the hospitality responsibility comes in even more. Not only do we want to make the experience seamless and inclusive, but we also want to make it memorable and rooted in impact, because again, that is the key to them coming back. So once we get past the visit, we get to my favorite part of the bow tie, which is the tail of the bow tie, where the retention and the advocacy happen. So when somebody returns to our organization, their relationship with us deepens. Every time they visit, they connect more and more to our mission. I started this by talking about how audiences buy for their why, not our why. But this is where we have the opportunity to bring those whys together. The welcome piece of the bow tie starts during the visit, but it continues beyond it. This is really about personalized communications and thinking about touch points immediately after the visit that make audiences feel seen and feel the impact of participating in your organization. So it feels good to do good, right? So as audiences are reminded of the good that they're doing by supporting the arts, they in turn are feeling the impact that they're seeking by participating in the arts. From there, we get to this never-ending loop of engage and impact. This is the recurring loop of impact. And we do this through special events. Somebody participates in a special event, they feel the impact, they come back. Loyalty programs, solicited feedback. We really do this by making our audiences feel special and memorable experiences every single opportunity that we have. So I want to illustrate this by talking about my colleague, Christopher Williams, for a moment. Many of you might know that Christopher has been a member and a frequent attendee of the New York City Ballet for years. He's obsessed. And Christopher definitely cares that the New York City Ballet has a mission. He cares enough to financially support them. But Christopher goes to the ballet for Christopher. He goes for his why. And like Neil's why, Christopher's why is hyper-specific to him. Christopher goes because he loves how he feels when he goes to Lincoln Center. He loves how he feels to be surrounded by that architecture. He loves how he feels to sit in that seat, be completely transported by art, and watch everything else in his life fully melt away. He goes to be transported. And you might expect that somebody who is that obsessed with New York City Ballet lives and breathes the mission of New York City Ballet, but I can tell you for a fact, because I asked him, he has no idea what the mission of New York City Ballet is. It is New York City Ballet's ability to constantly fulfill on Christopher's why that created his loop of recurring impact. It is memorable, it is seamless, and it is without friction, and that is how he remembers every time he goes to New York City Ballet. He remembers his why, and he remembers New York City Ballet's ability to fulfill on his why. Okay, now things are gonna get crazy and kind of fun. Are you excited? Okay, so here's another shape that you've grown familiar with, the flywheel. So in the flywheel, we see this never-ending loop of attract, engage, delight, putting the customer at the center. And we know that the flywheel spins faster when audiences have frictionless, meaningful experiences that make them want to go out in the world and spread goodwill for our organizations. That word of mouth comes when audiences feel the power of recurring impact. So you could say that the Bowtie model takes two models that we've grown familiar with, the marketing funnel and the flywheel, puts them together, puts the conversion at the center, creating a never-ending loop of recurring impact. Would you look at that? The Bowtie model really is about building lasting, meaningful relationships with our audiences. It's about making the work that we are doing today bigger than just filling our houses for today. It's about creating lifelong advocates for arts and culture for tomorrow, which is something I know that everyone in this room is driven by and deeply devoted to. So I invite you to think about how you can apply this model in your own work. How can you rethink the audience journey, centering this idea of recurring impact? The Bowtie model is more than just a framework for growth. It is a framework for connection, and that is what we're here to do today and what we work to do every single day, connect. So as we kick off boot camp, let's all embrace this opportunity to rethink how we connect, digitally, personally, and most importantly, with deep purpose and impact. Thank you.